Ding 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 ding.
Fubble Time.
Hey, I am Teresa Tomey.
And I am Patrick Ziegler. And which cat is that?
Pickles. And we are...
Oh, Fubble Entertainment.
And this is...
Fubble Time.
Apparently we're a little rusty and
we had a week off.
What's that?
We had a week off, right?
Yeah, I feel like we've had just
two
weeks. I feel like we've had 2 weeks off. I feel like we've only done 2 shows this because
we were doing something else, a little something else.
And if you haven't seen it, go to thesanahat.com and check out the script that Patrick and I wrote, and engaged 28 local and national. Tony Hammerhauser. 28, including Stephen Wallum, partner to Tony Hammerhauser, and Jeremy Koch from Farmers Alley. Howdy from Hollywood Hills. People are tuning in. So do us a favor.
And the daughter of somebody we're talking about tonight.
Oh, nice. Oh, nice. Welcome.
Luke
Happy New Year's all. Thank you, Sandra. So thanks for showing up. But again, sanahat.com. Please check it out. It's a fundraiser. We got 28 local and national people, including Lucy Arnaz, Ed Asner, Levi Christ, Gregory Jabara, Stephen Wallum, Michael Urey. Patrick and I make a little parts in there too. Lots of local talent here from Michigan, and it's a fundraiser for the Actors Fund, for the Ed Asner Family Center, for the Combined Theater Scholarship of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and for Gilda's Club Grand Rapids. We have 24 hours left for you to purchase your $13.95 download. $10 of that goes towards the project. So please, 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 if you get a chance, thesanahat.com. That's what
I actually just put up the sanahat.space so people aren't confused, because Facebook does this weird thing that they won't let the sanahat.com work. So we had to do the sanahat.space for anybody that's going over from Facebook or anywhere, right?
Yeah. So
my sister-in-law is there. Yay. Yeah. Carrie Lord Phillips.
So this is exciting. Look at all these people showing up.
I know.
You want to know what's really fun is we do so many of these, and look at how many people are already here. It's so fun.
Well, these two, I mean, once you get into this world, that gets excitement going on.
I'm very excited because this is not my world in the same way that it has been my beloved Patrick Ziegler's world since we met. So I am excited. Every week, I shared before, Patrick and I go to Los Angeles occasionally, and I live there now part-time. But Patrick takes off and goes and hangs out with his Lucy. I'm going to go out with my Lucy. What day am I going to see my Lucy buddies? I got to see my Lucy buddies. And he's got his Lucy buddies. And that is religious. Like, you cannot interfere with Patrick and his Lucy friends' time. So,
and you're always invited, and you're like, just go and have fun and talk. Yeah.
Go be with your Lucy friends. But I feel very loved by them. So I'm excited to learn more about their work today. So let's start with some introductions, shall we? You want to jump into the bayou?
I will jump into this. One of my favorite people on the planet's bio. Tom Watson was one of the executives.
He also looked at the Santa Hat and gave us feedback.
Yes, he did early on. Gave us script feedback, good feedback. Tom Watson was one of the executive producers of CBS recent colorized I Love Lucy presentations. He's the author of 3 books about Lucille Ball and I Love Lucy, and produced the recent CBS DVD release of The Lucy Show, which my dear friend Mary Jane Croft is a big part of and was included in the DVD, along with her husband, Elliot Lewis, who was a producer. And the Blu-ray release of I Love Lucy. He headed the Lucille Ball fan club for over 20 years and worked for the lady. I love that he says that, the lady, the last few years of her life. He was an assistant to the producers of Life with Lucy TV series, and produced 6 annual Lucille Ball fan conventions between 1996 and 2001, which I was very lucky to be a part of. And he lives in Sherman Oaks, California.
Woo! We'll bring him in a second. But I get to introduce Rick Carl, who has admired America's favorite redhead since his early youth in St. Louis, Missouri, and has been a longtime Lucille Ball collector. He is a talented artist, most definitely. His original portraits and design work have appeared on book covers, including Lucy, Ricky, Fred, and Ethel, The Story of I Love Lucy, the I Love Lucy quiz book, and the official I Love Lucy paper dolls.
That's so good.
I know. Magazines, theatrical posters, billboards, and television. He is a founding member of the We Love Lucy fan club. He was also co-producer and art director for the annual Loving Lucy conventions. And most recently, which we're going to be talking about tonight, was hired by CBS Studios to be the color consultant for the colorized I Love Lucy specials. He works as an art director and production manager for a film and television advertising agency. He resides in Los Angeles, California, and it's so funny. That feels very old-timey. Resides in Los Angeles, California. And joining us now, Rick Carl and Tom Watson. Come on.
Yay. Every day, da 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 da. That's the theme to Life with Lucy. And whenever Tom would come out for the conventions, that's what he would play, which I always loved. Hi, guys.
Oh, hey. Michael Stern is here too. So hello.
Oh, yay. Michael Stern is here. Hello, Rick Carl. Hello, Tom Watson. And Michael Stern's going to be a guest for us in the future, and is another Lucy big fan, number one fan, right? Number one fan of Lucy. And we also have a new friend, Raven Stone is here. Our TikTok friend, Teresa.
Raven!
Yes.
Oh my gosh, Raven is the best. Oh
Raven, if you guys, he is amazing on TikTok. He recreates episodes of Little House on the Prairie. He commentates about it.
He talks about, he watches them. They kind of go in the background. And he talks about them, and it's hilarious.
Wonderful. Oh my gosh, you guys are so popular. Look at all these people.
Crazy.
I changed my name to all those people, and it's working.
Carol, who was trying to figure out how to tune in, she's here, which is wonderful. So, hi, everybody. Oh my gosh, this is so fun. Yay, Raven says my heart.
Yay. Love it. Raven is the best.
You guys, I am thrilled that you're doing this. Teresa and I started this, you know, when COVID hit, and we had been talking about how do we do this, you know, together. And then it was like, hey, we don't have to be in the same town. We don't have to be in the same state. We can do this. And we just started it and started inviting friends to be a part of it. And this whole month has been a theme of the holidays. And these are, as I shared, two of my dearest friends that I love so much and have quite a history now. We go back, and we've had some amazing times together, and I just am so grateful that you guys are here. We've had many holidays together, so this kind of seems fitting, right?
Definitely. Well, you and I are not only longtime friends and with Teresa, but also Rick and I go back at least 40 years. Of course, I was 3 and he was 2 at the time, and if you don't believe me, then we might as well just quit right now. But anyway, no, we go back a good 40 years. I was living in New York. He was in St. Louis, and another Lucy fan, a gentleman named Bart Andrews, who wrote the Bible about the series called Lucy, Ricky, Fred, and Ethel, knew us both through all of the interviews and things he had done about Lucy. And plus he used to, when he wrote, in those days, when you wrote a book, half your job was like with the movies, you promoted it, and his publisher sent him all over the country, and he met us both in our respective cities. Like I say, I was in New York, Rick was in St. Louis. Anyway, I was talking to him long distance. I had phone bills, I'm still paying them in those days. And I talked to Bart Andrews that, you know, after he got back to LA after his book tour, and he said, there's a guy you need to meet. He's in St. Louis. I said, I'm in New York. I can't meet. Anyway, he gave me all of Rick's, you know, name, address, phone number, whatnot. And then Rick and I spent a fortune chit-chatting back and forth. And then we both wound up moving out here together. And not together, but within months of each other.
Well, I want to know, I'm going to take you back even a step further before you guys even met. And I want to know, Joseph says, hey, fellow Lucy folk. Michael Stern, I don't even know if I dare share that comment, but he said I wasn't even born. So you can roast him later.
Will do.
Stepping back, I want to know, starting with Rick, you're creative. I mean, you live a creative life. You're an art director. You've had this creative life. Did that come out of your love of Lucy, or was that born inside of you before you knew Lucy?
I think that was before, and for some reason, I got to see the Lucy Desi comedy hours first when I came home from school, and there they were. And I had no idea, that there was a whole nother show and that she had a career, and that her husband had a career. And that's the first time I saw them was on their, last series together. And I turned to my mom and said, she said, there's other things. And little by little, she came into my world as I came into her world. And my art basically was first. And then I thought, I can draw a little bit. So she was one of the first to give me the inspiration to draw portraits. And end of the story is that I don't think I still stopped drawing her, but yes,
wonderfully too.
But I've drawn many other people, but it turned into a more graphic career. But she definitely was my inspiration. I mean, come on, look at that face.
Well, you did many years of her face in beautifully, and which ended up becoming the logo for the Lucy conventions for the last 4 years?
3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then on that same note, Tom, we always ask our guests, when did they get bitten by the entertainment bug? What could you say, because you weren't a performer, but you worked in entertainment ever since you went to New York and before, right? You worked in, when you went to Ball State, correct?
Right. And, where Mary Jane also attended.
I know.
Muncie, Indiana. And I've worked in and around the entertainment business my entire life. Part of it, or a great deal of it, I think, has to do with my parents. My father owned an appliance store, and they had a TV set before they had me. Now, I realize to 9/10 of the world, that's not a
big deal, right?
Special statement. But when you were born in the 40s, that was a big deal. We had one of those, a TV antenna on top of our roofs, and people would walk by thinking that Martians had landed. And then, no, it was just it was the kind of a place where when I got sick, my doctor, was a Marcus Welby type who came to the house, but he brought his whole family to my house when I was sick so that his kids could watch the TV while he was looking at me.
Oh my gosh.
True story. Anyway, so television was a part of my life from the cradle. And I mentioned what I'm about to say to Desi Jr., and he later said, Tom, I've heard that from many people. Insofar as, like I say, we had a TV household right from the word go. All of my family, I had two brothers and a sister and mother and father, and the 6 of us, everybody seemed to have their own favorites. My mother liked things like Boston Blackie and murder mysteries and things like that. My dad was into Jackie Gleason and Milton Berle. And
seems like everybody's dad back then was Jackie Gleason.
Everybody had their own favorites, but the one show that brought the whole family into the living room was I Love Lucy. So, I mean, Desi had said, he said, I think people want loved my parents, but it also, there's that whole familial feeling about it. And quite honestly, to push ahead now 60 years, when we show the color shows on CBS in prime time, we get mail from families saying, I loved it because I sat down and watched it with my kids.
Yeah.
A lot of parents put it on because they know it's safe. They don't have to worry about off-color humor, off-color jokes. But then they hear it, they're out in the kitchen doing whatever they're doing or in the other room. They hear it, and little by little they come in, and the whole family is watching Lucy do her stuff. And
well, you bring up one of the subjects.
the big kids, they're reliving the past.
Right. So you bring up one of the subjects that we're here together for, and I want to just honor this because this is great because he was a dear friend of yours. I love that Bart Andrews book on I Love Lucy. I wish I could post a photo of me with him here, but I can't. Patrick, I just messaged you a photo. So I'll have to post that. I have to post that later, right?
Yeah.
But you bring up kind of one of the main reasons that we're here is that we are talking holiday this whole month. We're talking Christmas. And one of the most fun things that happened was in 1989, right? They did the first colorization.
Right.
But you guys weren't a part of that first one. But then how did you become part of the retooling?
There was a gentleman that worked for Lucy for good 10, 12 years at Desi Lou and then Lucille Ball Productions named Bernie Weitzman. And after Lucille Ball Productions, retired and he went on to other things, one of the companies that he was involved with was involved with early colorization. Now we're going back to the early 80s, mid 80s, when colorization first got a real bad rap. Although
Rick.
it was very rude, to say the least. That was when Ted Turner first tried to colorize some movie classics and whatnot, and all of Hollywood came down hard on him. Anyway, they were experimenting with colorizing I Love Lucy. And he chose the spaghetti scene from Lucy and Ethel go to the Brown Derby, and they wind up running into William Holden. And they tested it. And CBS liked what they saw, but they didn't think it was quite there yet. So they sort of set it aside. And a few years passed, and then they decided, well, but now the thing is, the colorization right up to the COVID time in, March 15th, when the world shut down, keeps evolving. It gets better and better and better and better and better. Because it's technology, and the better the technology, the better the product. And in 1989, they decided to revisit it because just in the 5 or so years that had lapsed, the technology had gotten better. And so they chose the Christmas show, which had been something of a missing in action,
Right.
Throughout the 60s and 70s and 80s, when the reruns were all on, whatever. That first they were on CBS Morning, and then they were syndicated and on cable networks and whatnot. The Christmas show was never it was never part of it. They left it out on purpose because it was basically a kind of a throwaway that Desi Lou did for one very practical reason. Fans kept writing in saying, when can we see the baby shows again? And they had never been repeated within the Monday night series. They had been repeated for a couple of seasons. CBS ran what they called The Lucy Show in the 55, 56. It ran like on Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon type of thing, but not the whole network carried it. When it wasn't prime time, the stations had an option to either carry it or not. So it was basically on maybe half the network. And so there was a big interest in seeing the baby shows. Well, Desi Lou didn't know how to repeat them because there was like 6 or 7 of them in a story arc. So they took the three scenes that would basically tell the story and did it in flashbacks and had the Ricardos and the Mertzes decorating a Christmas tree, thinking, oh, remember the night, blah, 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 big wavy screen, and there you are. Well, Desi Lou did not think that merited being included in the package. Plus, I know Bob Carroll told me, we were afraid that because once you put them into when you put them into the cycle, if you will, it's like episode, I'm making this up now, if it's like 159 or whatever, every time it comes to 158, no matter when it's on, it's going to be on next. And they didn't want a Christmas show in July. They didn't do that in those days.
Right.
And so they.
And by the way, you just dropped a big name, Bob Carroll Jr. For those that are out there that don't know. Is one of
the key writers, one of the top 3, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
He and Madeline Pugh, Martin Davis, and Jess Oppenheimer created this wonderful situation. And
that little show that never stopped.
Right.
So, yeah. So Tom, I want to move because we're already like 20 minutes in. I want to move into, and maybe this can go over to Rick as far as the new colorization, because Rick, you didn't work on the colorization of the Christmas episode. When did you come into play with the new ones?
Right after that, actually, and it was because of someone who couldn't be here today, Jonathan Angus, who kept calling me, and Tom and I are working on this, and I think then right after Tom called me as well, and they brought me into the fold because they were there from the beginning. I was not. And then all of a sudden I would look at things and I go, well, can we fix this, and can we, for the new ones? And I happen to know, because as Teresa, you mentioned, being a collector, you amass some material.
Look at the things back of him.
Yeah. Well, that's the latest. I wish it was real. I can't believe I don't know whose that one is, but not. Anyway, when you amass material, you go, oh my God, this is really good. This is color. And for instance, I got a little show and tell, but this was one of the reasons I knew this is real color, as I said in our little featurette on the DVD, that tells me everything I need to know. And
what is the title of that? Adult what?
Adult psychology
for everyone.
Oh my gosh.
And the joke is, it's like, well, we actually had this in our little featurette, but then we had to take it out for legal reasons, which is fine. But it told me she is not wearing blue and purple. She's wearing burgundy and whatever. And if we get to that episode and she's wearing that, bingo, we're in. And that's how the collecting turns into a profession.
I love this, that Raven says the fashion show coloring was like cotton candy heaven.
It was for me.
It was. So talk, because I know a little bit about, you would say, okay, I know that this is the color of this dress. Now, some of the dresses and some of the other outfits you didn't necessarily know. What made you decide to go, why am I blanking on her name? Sheila McRae is wearing this color in that episode.
Go ahead, Tom.
First of all, we already had everything else above and beyond everything else. Yes, we want it to be true to life, but at the same time, we also want it to look good.
Right.
And you have to, our guiding rule was, they chose what they chose to wear, not because they necessarily liked the color of it, but they liked the way it photographed in black and white.
Right.
Oh.
So in theory, something could be there together, something green and something red, and if they were the right shade, they've almost photographed the exact same tone of gray. But that doesn't necessarily mean, if you go back to making this one red and that one green, that unless it's Christmas, it may not look right. So we had to make sure that whatever we were creating still looked good. But we tried to be as faithful as possible. Back to Sheila's outfit, Rick and I are both huge fans of Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo. And in it, Kim Novak wears Alfred Hitchcock gray in her outfit. And we thought, since we don't know, let's try it. And it worked beautifully. So there are tricks, there are ways we do it. But if we hadn't liked it, if it hadn't looked good, it would wound up being blue or some other color.
Oh.
Well, this is interesting because the featurette that you guys did on the DVD, and that was in Fathom, released in theaters, Raven, who's just, I'm so glad he's here. Interesting, he's bringing this up. I remember from the featurette something with Lucy's dress clashing with Ethel's.
Right.
Do you know what that is?
It didn't clash. It was. We have photographs. That was Vivian Vance's real dress, or it was made for the show, and she wore it in real life, because we have pictures of her at an Emmy Awards wearing it, and it was a pinkish red. It was more red than pink, and it was a satin, and it was gorgeous. And we put her in it, and everybody looked at her and not at Lucy, and that's a no-no. you don't upstage your star.
She stood out much.
In real life, if it had been in
you have
color,
to
she
go back
wouldn't have been wearing it.
Is that what you had to do? You had to go back and recolor it then?
We had quite
Made it green. It looks perfect. It's just that it was red in real. It was when red. One of the reasons they use red on so much advertising, it's an eye grabber.
Right. Sure. So what were you saying, Rick? It's got 5. You had 5 different iterations.
We knew in this case, and I had backtracked for 1 second about the perception of colorization, which maybe is a whole nother show and another subject, but we say it on the featurette that we are just as proud and loving the black and whites, and as Tom always said, they are going nowhere. They are there, and the colorization brings a whole new life, and as Tom said before, it augments the series, brings a whole new life, and it's something a little different. That I stand for and enjoy.
Absolutely.
Deep down, yeah. Do I love the black and whites? Absolutely. These guys worked so diligently to bring them that tone and this and that and the other to make them what they are. But now it's like, let's add to it a little bit. Let's bring some life to it in a different fashion and still honor those people that did what they did. So bottom line, going back to her, how we know things, as opposed to people saying, these guys are just picking random colors. They have no clue. And what they don't know, they fake. It's called educated guessing. Like Tom said about the gray suit, because we had color in the 50s, we had her in different suits and it just didn't play, but the gray did for Sheila McRae. For Ethel, she just stood out too much. It was a shame. It was killing me because it's like, we know the color and we got it right on the money, but she outshone Lucy.
I love, Michael asked, how many have been colorized? 6? Is that right?
17.
17?
17, and there are 16 of them are out on this package.
Oh my God.
I don't want to
well, let me tell you what I'm going to do.
How many episodes are, sorry, my bad. How many episodes are there?
Including the Christmas show, there's 180 half hours and 13 hour-long shows.
And how many are there plans then to colorize more? Like what's
well, that's we don't know, but right now, like I say, there's one that was supposed to air this year and never did, but anyway, it's however many we ever do. But for right now, there are 17, and 16 of them are readily available on a DVD.
And how long does it take? Oh, that's so funny, Kevin. I'm asking the question right as you're posting it. How long does it take to colorize an episode?
Well, there are various steps, but start to finish, probably 2.5, 3 months. But that includes all the stuff that like Rick does, including doing the research. As soon as we decide on which episode we're going to do, Rick goes into overdrive as far as research, and he looks at everything possible, and sometimes he'll call up and say, I don't know what to do with that, and that's when we come up with ideas like Kim Novak, because it was a very similar cut suit and things like that would be appropriate. Also, the reason we chose Vertigo was it was almost the same year, so we do things like that. Other times it's very, very easy. There's one, I was sitting in Rick's office. I was right next to him there, and we were talking about Lucy and Viv going to Grauman's Chinese, and he gets on the internet and bang, 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 and bang, there's a color picture almost identical to what we were looking for, and a bus drives by, and and there's also a bus in the house of Lucy.
It's not just the clothes, because that is what is changing from episode to episode for the most part. But once you establish the first apartment, the house, wherever they are, okay, we've got it. But luckily, the powers that be let us go back, and I want to go back and fix things, of course. But at the same time, yes, I'm not being rude here, but Tom did say, you said to me early, nobody cares about that ashtray, and I said, but I do. But I do. And
it's so funny because the two questions, and we were talking about this yesterday when we showed that clip from the Brown Derby, and how in color years ago at the Television Academy, and how I realized and noticed the little Brown Derby light fixtures, the little hat that I had never seen before. And so Peter brings up a great comment around the colorization. What things you notice, including the ashtray,
well,
right?
Right now, I'm looking at Rick sitting in his office, and there is a zillion different colors back of him. If this were all black and white TV, he'd be sitting there, and all those would be shades of gray,
Right.
and we wouldn't notice the individual items. It all sort of becomes a gray, I won't say a gray blur, but it becomes a gray background. Now it's all individual items.
It's interesting. Go ahead, Teresa.
I was gonna, yeah, like Laura says, yes, we care about that ashtray. Bless you, Laura.
Well, the ashtray is a funny little thing because, quite honestly, we did 2 episodes and did not do them back to back. We did the Harpo Marx episode, and we're planning to air it one year at Christmas time, and suddenly we got when CBS decided they would also like to do a show in the spring, which we were calling the Superstar Specials, because we were trying to include as many of the guests.
Was that the Superman one?
There was this. We decided we'd also do the Van Johnson episode that led into it and piece them together as an hour. Well, so they were colorized maybe a year apart.
Oh.
And when we went back in, the way it aired on TV, that ashtray was like green in one episode. They got to a commercial. We came back to episode number 2, and it was suddenly not green anymore. So we do these things happen, but we're not supposed to brag about them. But there you are.
This is an interesting question because we talked about this, and I do want to talk about this. They're asking, what are Lucy and Desi Jr.'s thoughts on the colorizing? And we talked about. You want to share about Lucy, Rick? What happened with that?
I remember an interview right before one of the airings, and she basically said, "I prefer the black and white as they were, but if CBS, can get if it can be successful, go for it, But she preferred the black and white, which is perfectly lovely, and there's a lot of people out there that would agree with her. And then when our featurette came, the Fathom event back in, what was it, August last year, 19?
Right, 19, yeah.
And she wrote on Facebook that I went with my husband and a group of friends. We sat there in the theater. We've seen these things 1,000 times, but we were laughing out loud just like everybody else with that wonderful camaraderie of the audience, which is a great, great thing. I hope we can do it again, quite frankly. But she went back later on Facebook and she said, I had no idea what you guys go through and how long it takes and the details and the research to do this colorization. And she became, I don't know if she was a convert, but I just think it was a lovely, lovely thing to say.
It was a big stamp of approval, for sure.
And that
meant, I remember reading that.
It meant a lot. It really
did. The bottom line, of course, has always been, as Rick, I think, mentioned earlier, we're not doing anything at all to destroy or tamper with the black and whites. They're still wherever they always were, and we don't want to replace them with a color version. All we're doing is introducing, quite honestly, as early as 10, 12 years ago, when I first started working with CBS, I think my first project was putting the hour-long Lucy Desi shows on a DVD. Mm-hmm. And I was working with a young man who it was a crash project, which means you had to have it done, yesterday. And so we worked from 6 to midnight every night to get it done. And about 7 o'clock the first night, this young man said, "Do you mind if I take a little break?" I said, "No, I need one too. I'm going to go visit the little boy's room. Where are you going?" And he said, "I'm going to make a phone call. I have 2 little kids at home and I want to tell them good night." Fine. He did his thing. I did mine, and we came back together. And I said, "Speaking of the kids, what do they think of black and white television? Things like I Love Lucy." And he said, "They're 5, 6 years old. I don't think they've ever seen it.
Yeah.
They don't even know what black and white television is. They were sort of born into the computer world." And that was 10, 12 years ago. So one of the main reasons CBS went into this full blast is the fact that Lucy has always been very special to the network as their crown jewel, and the mere thought that people don't like or are estranged from black and white TV, sort of the way I was as a child when my mother used to talk about going to the silent movies when she was a kid. I finally saw one and I thought, okay, no, thank you. And if kids do not embrace black and white, then we're all sort of, in the
right, you lose an audience, you lose the potential generation. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And for some reason, I don't know why, we've lost Patrick.
I was going to say, what happened to Michigan?
He's well, it's part of Michigan is here because I'm in Michigan today, so I don't know what
Maybe
happened.
He left for Florida and didn't tell you.
Yes, maybe he left. I don't know. That's so bizarre. So I'm going to ask, I think, one more question here. And I don't. Michael Stern actually asked a question. He said, Tom, Rick, what did you learn about the Ricardos and the Mertzes from black and white to color that we never knew? It is an interesting question. Is there something that made you feel like you had a different relationship with them on the other side of it?
I can only speak about maybe the clothes on this one, because we found the great part is to make it realistic, which Tom has mentioned to me many times, that Lucy didn't want to be a movie star. There we go.
Hi, he's back.
I'm so glad you guys are still talking. I was so worried.
We were talking about you.
It's all good. We were like, Tom said, oh, I think he went to Florida.
Did you hear that question, Patrick, about Michael said, did you find anything different about the Mertzes and the Ricardos now that they're in color? And I said, well, knowing that Lucy didn't want to be a movie star on the show, she wore her clothes over and over and over. And so does Fred Mertz. There's only about 5 suits that he wears, it seems, when he's dressed up, about 4 ties. And I go, thank God, now I know what it is, because I did it 5 episodes ago. And that is a silly thing about the Ricardos and the Mertzes. But
doesn't that say a lot about what the character would do, too? Because Fred would have that many suits.
I wanted these to be real people and not be, I watched reruns of Murder, She Wrote. It's one of my favorites of that era, and God bless her, she must have had a hell of a contract, because every week Angela Lansbury is decked out to the hilt, and every week it's different. It's not the same, it's not the same outfit she wore last week or 2 weeks ago. It's all brand new. Well, Lucy didn't want that at all, at all. In fact, she wanted Lucy Ricardo's dresses to be, like Rick said, so from episode to episode, and it makes our life easier, but also it adds to the realism, I think, of the series. These are real people in, we mentioned the writers earlier. They tried to do the same thing. They did not create outlandish things from the get-go. They tried to start the first maybe the first 2 or 3 minutes to the first 10 minutes was supposed to be almost a page out of our lives.
Right.
But then the way Lucy handled the problem was totally wacko compared to what maybe the 4 of us would do. And so that was the fun of it, was to start with reality and then take it off into the atmosphere. And so the clothes had to reflect that as well.
Can I share something with you before we answer Ray?
Got a question about Harpo.
This is the type of research from TV Guide, from film magazines, from TV magazines, and you go, thank the Lord. Now, like I keep always referring to, it's 50s color, so it might be a little off, but quite frankly, it shows me that, okay, we know this episode, they're on their way, and Teensy and Weensy are about to come in, but there they are. And there's the colors that they are wearing. And you can see, for the most part, the jail is pretty nondescript. But the fact is, if you're going to color, I see he's got a little red handkerchief. Okay, that's minor stuff. Who cares? But it's there. Try to honor it and use it and go for it. And I will tell you, the mere fact that we're involved in this process with quite a team, I have to say.
Yeah.
And we're fans, and I say that lovingly, because you're honored to work on something. Why not try to do it as close as you can to right?
Well, you also did that when we would do the conventions, and you would do the artwork, and when we recreated the set. it was the same thing. It was like, no, that's not the right color tone, or no, that's not the right shape. And Tom and I walked through many warehouses looking for the right.
No, the thing is,
this is interesting about Harpo. I like his question because he is a big Marx Brothers and Harpo fan. On that note, were there any revelations about the Harpo episode? Big Harpo fan here.
Not really a revelation. Well, whenever possible, we try to touch base with people, and obviously Harpo is long since deceased, but his son still lives down in Palm Springs, and so I got in touch with him and I told him what we were doing, and he said, "Send me one." I did. He said he's the one. He's a pianist and he entertains down there, but he helped his dad create the "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." And
he helped his dad create it.
Huh?
He helped his dad create that.
Well, the play, he wrote it for him, or he worked with his dad because it had to be just right, because it was on primetime television. And you know, the one thing Lucy always said was a problem with working with Harpo, who she loved, by the way, of the Marx Brothers. She said he was the sane one. You know, the others were just, you know, all over the place. But anyway, Harpo had the problem of he always worked alone or with one of the brothers, and so he never necessarily repeat things. I mean, they were always bouncing off of walls and bouncing off each other, and she had to learn the whole routine exactly, and he didn't necessarily do it the same way twice, and so he had to learn it too. To do it, he had to remember exactly what he was supposed to do so that she could mimic it exactly. And so but anyway, his son was a great help as far as, you know, he helped as far as the shade of the harp and whatnot. And like I say, I sent him a copy as soon as we got it. So
I remember talking to Doris about it. Did you ever connect with Doris very much about it, Rick?
We talked about it briefly. One of the best moments I ever had, when Debbie Reynolds had, I don't know if it was Debbie Reynolds, when she had her big auction, there was Harpo's hat and Harpo's wig on a stand, and here's Doris Singleton, Carolyn Appleby right smack in front of it all those years later. Believe me, we took photos, and she loved it. She was very, you know, it was just, people started coming around. They recognized, oh my God, that's Carolyn Appleby as an older lady, but she's still with Harpo. It's so strange. But the cool part is about Tom mentioned it, the harp. The harp was for sale at one of the auction houses, and it gave me everything I needed to know. All the little details, the color was blonde, and it was like, I'm obsessed about it. Yeah. But at the same time, it's right there, and that, you couldn't beat that.
Yeah.
So how can, people,
and it may be on the interview that Greg Oppenheimer and I interviewed her and Stevie, that played her son in the Superman episode, for an audio track on the I Love Lucy season 6 DVDs. And I believe she said Harpo was not supposed to drop his hat, and it didn't faze him a bit. She was flung over his shoulders. They're going out the door. He drops the hat and he just picks it up, and out they go. And no one's ever known that
that is a professional. Total professional. Let's keep going.
What were you going to ask, Teresa?
I was going to say, we've been talking about this, and you guys are adorably you both have handy your DVD sets. What are you holding up there? What do you have in your hands that we can tell people about?
Wait.
The documentary, yeah.
Aired so far.
Bing. We did not rehearse this. I can show you one thing that real quick, because I know we're running short.
And Keith says, "So cool, you guys." And I love what.
Look at this.
Again,
that showed me, okay, if that was a white blouse, boy, it sure got, you know, dunked in perfectly, you know, smooth and even all over the place. So when you find things like this, you go, okay, more than educated guessing. This shows us it probably was close to this color, and the fact that it exists And it now dispels a lot of rumor. Oh no, that shirt was this color and those pants couldn't have been red, or skirt.
Is there something out there that you're like, I know something exists that tells me what color that is, and it's the elusive item that you've yet to figure out how to color?
Well, like I say, one thing that has happened over the last 7-8 years since we've been doing this is that, again, the technology keeps improving because our computer systems keep improving and everything gets a little bit better. And one of the things that eluded us the first few years was Lucy's hair color. Now, in all fairness to us, I found a letter that was, I guess, on the internet. She wrote to one of her girlfriends back in Jamestown saying, "I've got to get a new hairstylist because such and so was retiring." Not on the show, but in real life. And she says, every time I go to such and so, I come out of the salon with a slightly different color hair. So if it happened to her, it's fine that it happened to us. Because it wasn't a real color. It was,
You brought up a good thing around that time because you had to deal with the lights hitting her hair and had to deal with that.
There's a couple of episodes. One of my favorites that we did was the one where they're in the gay 90s outfits. And, I now have Fred's hair. And when that light up there hits the top of Fred's head, it's white. You cannot colorize white. That's why on the Christmas tree, like behind Teresa, if we were to colorize, well, it is in color, but if it weren't, if it was in black and white, those white lights, we could not color. And so anyway, his head's missing because it's just white, because the light. And yes, even in Lucy's hair color changes color depending on where the lights are. So
I want to, because we are getting towards the end. This is so wonderful. Of course, I could talk forever. And Teresa's been so great around just, being a part of it.
Fascinating. I mean, this is the whole process. I remember I'm like, where were we? Because I feel like I was with you in August when we saw that, because I remember like standing in front of a TV and clapping.
It was in our house in Sherman Oaks when it was released that year. We had that party and everybody came.
I remember clapping for you guys and being
we got
the first of our spring specials. I think it was the Superman and William Holden episode.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's so fun.
And I'm getting chills. It was so much fun. So I mean, we've had so many great experiences together. Tom, you got to work with the lady. Rick got to be around the lady, which I love that you call her the lady. And we talk.
We call him our cameraman because he always came to life with Lucy, and he carried his little camera in his pocket and was always taking pictures. And she loved that because and so whenever one of the cast members' mother was in the audience, everybody always wanted a picture. Well, who has a camera at the time? Rick did.
Yeah.
He takes pictures one Thursday night and bring a roll in and bring them all in the next Thursday and give them to everybody appropriate. So.
Treasured moments.
One of my biggest regrets to this day is that I didn't get in a car and drive out in 1986 and be there for Life with Lucy, but didn't know how. But
in spirit.
I got to work with you guys and become so close to Mary Jane and work with all the wonderful writers and Doris and all those people. We are coming on the 70th, and I was just reading something that MeTV's taken it off, and there's backlash around the colorization. I believe the colorization is inviting it to a new audience. So it continues to reinvent itself in a movie theater, right? What do you see, other than us doing a Zoom convention this year for the 70th anniversary, which people are talking about? What do you guys see this year for the 70th?
A lot will depend, of course, on COVID and the vaccinations and all that. But assuming they go away, I got to believe something's going to happen, but I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot's not been planned because of that. You mentioned the Fathom thing, which was like in August of 19, and it was so successful. First of all, no one ever thought, a simple little half-hour TV series would sell theater tickets, and they put 6 episodes back to back, and bang, it sold out across the country. And in some theaters, it was in duplexes, you know, triplexes, quadplexes, whatever. And it sold out in theater A. Well, that's where they planned on putting it. Well, they pulled whatever was in theater B and put it in both theaters. Wow. Because who's going to turn down the money? First of all, it's a Wednesday night, so that wasn't too, you know, necessarily big business anyway. And hello, people are calling. So it was in sometimes two theaters where it's supposed to be in one, and all over the country it was sold out.
600 theaters.
You know, over the moon over it, and they wanted to do it again this year in 20, but then COVID came along, shut us all down. So, but we don't know. I can't answer that, Patrick. Something ought to be done. It might be fun to do another Fathom for the anniversary or something. I don't know. I can't answer.
To be done, because this camaraderie, as I said earlier, in the theater. Who thought that you would go to a theater to watch television? But we did.
Right.
It was successful, and you know, I got to tell you, I hope something.
Raven just wrote, I went to the theater, was packed with people of all ages. Everyone died laughing.
Well, one of the things I have always said about, you know, the conventions we did, God, it's been 20 years ago now.
Crazy.
Whenever we would show we did, you know, an opening night thing where we showed some of Lucille Ball's performances, and usually clips from I Love Lucy or some Lucy show. I came out and introduced things and then held it together as a make-do host, and I would stand backstage. One of my favorite things was to stand backstage or in front of the stage looking out through the curtains, watching people watch her.
Yeah.
Because I Love Lucy on television is basically something you do at home alone. I know that sounds filthy, but I don't mean it that way. I'm just saying you do it at home in the privacy of your home. You don't watch TV shows. They were never geared, never produced with the idea of a mass audience of 350 people or 550 people in the same room.
Right.
It was so much fun for me to see everybody who laugh at the same moment. You know? And it was sort of a group hug. And we felt the same thing. I think Rick was talking about it earlier at Fathom. You know, we were sitting he and I and our little team was sitting up clear at the back of the room. So they was all down, and the place was hysterical at all the right moments. And it was like a group love you know. I felt the same thing I always did back in my own living room with my mom and dad when they were all together laughing at the same thing. She does that to this day. That lady brings wonderful together.
It was an honor for the team to work on all this, and I hope we continue. But what we're doing is also honoring all those other people that brought this to us. It wasn't just Lucy, Desi, and Viv and Bill. It was that whole team of people that make us laugh.
Well, you felt, I mean, we were.
Christina ends it lovely with, laughter is the one contagion we do need. And you are absolutely right. Let's get contagious with laughter. That's a good sentiment.
Yeah.
I love and adore you guys. This has been wonderful. We are so thrilled to have you and to end our year with you guys. This is our last interview of the year. So,
well, thank you for inviting us.
Oh, thanks for being with us. It's just great. I'm so delighted to hear about it. I look forward to 2021. So thank you. Raven, thanks for joining us here today. You guys check out Raven on the TikTok.
So we're going to pop you into the green room, but don't go away because we'll say goodbye after we tune up. Go to everybody else goodbye. So thank you guys. So Michael Stern, love this. Yay, Michael, big part of this family. So love you guys, and we'll see you in a minute.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Yes, Christina, it was recorded. It'll live on Fubble Entertainment's Facebook page. Colleen, thanks for being with us.
Oh, Glenn Charlo is a big Lucy person who came to every convention.
Nice.
Oh my gosh, so
this is all for you.
You know, this is amazing for me. So this is and Raven, so fun to have you here because we love watching you. So so wonderful. And next month we're looking at doing all children's television theme, right? Isn't that what we're doing?
We are. I think that's our next month.
That's another part of our world.
Don't forget to watch thesantahat.com. Go to Santa Hat Come check that out. Yes, we're going to do children's television. And then in February, we're going to do relationships, creative partners. So we're going to do that. Christina invites to come to LA for a distant visit.
Oh,
very fun. Thank you, Joseph. Really great to have you with us. So thank you, everyone. Thank you especially to Tom and Rick for your generosity of time and talents that you have shared with all of us over the years. So we appreciate all you have done to keep the spirit of Lucy alive.
And on that note, we say,
we got to get out of here.
Goodbye, everybody.
Gotta
Happy
go.
New Year.
Happy New Year.